Stop! You have no brakes, the black maid shouted to the CEO. That sentence changed everything. Sienna James, a young black cleaning lady from Atlanta, had always lived in the shadows of injustice and silence, between invisible work shifts and painful memories from the past. She never imagined her life would change the moment she crossed paths with Nathan Whitman, a powerful CEO marked by coldness and the burden of his own family legacy. What starts with a desperate scream soon turns into a war of interests, lies, and secrets capable of shaking an empire. Amidst the chaos, courage and love arise where no one expected. And with every choice made, Sienna and Nathan's fates intertwine in a plot that challenges prejudice, power, and the limits of the heart. Before we begin this emotional story, I want to invite you to comment below where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far our stories are reaching. And if you're into intense love stories full of twists and heartwarming endings, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss anything that's coming, and you'll help this space grow, bringing more and more stories made to truly touch you. Atlanta, 2023, rainy night. In the inner courtyard of Whitman Enterprises, spotlights cut through the drizzle and reflected off the glass of the headquarters like blades of light. The smell of rubber and oil hung in the air. Investors in dark suits, closed umbrellas in hand, watched the safety demonstration of the new fleet. Sienna James, 31 years old, medium chocolate-toned skin, and a perfectly neat blue uniform, swept with firm movements, her loose curly hair shining under the lights at shoulder length. Her honey-colored eyes, alert to everything, scanned from the executive's feet to the wheels of the shiny truck. There was magnetism in her stance, a defined waist, natural elegance, a restrained smile she rarely showed at work. Nathan Whitman, 37, tall, athletic build, slightly wavy dark brown hair, and a well-groomed beard, climbed into the truck cabin like a man who owned his destiny. His cold blue eyes scanned the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, safety is a priority here. I'll be driving myself. The mic captured the confidence in his tone. Caleb, 34, shorter, dirty blonde, green eyes that smiled without joy, crossed his arms just a few steps away, watching impatiently. Sienna bent down to pick up a wrapper near the front wheel and saw a thin trail leaking from the brake system. It wasn't rainwater. She brought her fingers closer, smelled them, and her heart sank. Brake fluid. The same scent that invaded her teenage years on a night long ago, when her father didn't come back from his shift. The memory hit hard, but Sienna stayed silent for a second, calculating the risk, the ramp's angle, the distance to the glass wall where the investors stood. Nathan started the engine. The sound was deep, powerful. The truck moved forward a few meters. "Everything under control," he said, with a professional half-smile. The drizzle grew heavier. Sienna took a deep breath, felt her hands tremble, and her eyes met Nathan's for a brief moment. In them, she saw a man carrying the weight of the world, maybe even an old guilt. He didn't know. Nobody knew. "Don't do it, Sienna. Don't get involved," whispered Amara, a colleague and friend, appearing beside her with a cleaning cart, her voice nearly begging. Sienna straightened her back. "If I stay quiet, someone gets hurt." The truck picked up speed to make the demonstration turn. The crowd murmured, excited. Nathan stepped on the brake casually. His expression shifted in a sharp instant. Nothing. He pressed harder. Still nothing. The engine roared. The vehicle slid, heavy, gaining momentum on the wet ramp. Sienna saw the future in 2 seconds. The safety barrier was too low, the glass too fragile, and behind it, people. The voice she usually kept to herself tore across the courtyard. "Stop! You have no brakes!" The scream wasn't just loud, it was final. The investors turned, some instinctively stepping back. Nathan, for a split second, found Sienna in the crowd. She was pointing, arms wide, eyes blazing with certainty. "Pull the parking brake. Downshift. Steer into the maintenance bay. To the right." "Who is that?" someone whispered. "She's the cleaning lady," another replied, mixing disdain and astonishment. Nathan followed a survival impulse, and her command. "To the right," he repeated, more to himself. He turned the wheel, the rear end skidded. The side scraped the guardrail with a metallic screech that sent shivers through everyone. Sienna ran. Her blue uniform streaked across the courtyard like a beacon. She reached the wall and hit the red button for the emergency closure of the bay, dropping an internal padded safety barrier no one remembered existed. The truck slammed into the padding, lost momentum, dragged a few more inches, and stopped just before hitting the column. Silence fell like a blade. The sound of rain filled the space. Nathan stayed still for a long second, hands frozen on the wheel. He took a deep breath, heavy and looked down. Sienna, out of breath, a lock of hair stuck to her forehead, stared at him with the same intensity that had saved him. The glow in her eyes was real, human, undeniable. Caleb broke the silence with a short laugh. "Nice show. And who gave the order to activate the bay system? Is that standard procedure?" Sienna didn't flinch. Standard procedure is not killing anyone. There was a brake fluid leak. I smelled it. I saw the trail. An older investor leaned over to see the thin puddle on the ground. My God, she's right. Nathan got down from the cabin, breathing heavily, the adrenaline draining from his legs. "You saw the leak beforehand? How did you know the parking brake could hold the weight?" "Because my dad died in a truck when someone ignored a leak like that," Sienna replied, voice steady despite her chest rising and falling rapidly. "I wasn't going to let it happen again." Nathan's eyes trembled in a place he never exposed. He took a step forward, as if gravity pulled him. "Thank you." Caleb stepped forward, thin smile. Or maybe she tampered with something to look like a hero. Kinda weird, huh? A cleaning lady giving technical orders in the yard. Amara stepped in, face tense. She saved everyone here. Maybe thank her first and ask questions later. Sienna didn't blink. You can investigate. Cameras, records, maintenance logs. It'll all be there. The investors started murmuring among themselves. Uneasy. One of them approached Nathan. "Your protocols need revision." Nathan nodded, still looking at Sienna like he was trying to decipher a new language. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sienna James." He repeated it, like committing it to memory. "Sienna." The rain lightened, almost symbolically. Around them, the security team rushed to seal the area, checking the leak. A technician crouched, touched the ground, sniffed it, turned pale. "It's fluid, all right." Nathan took a deep breath. "We're ending the demonstration for today. Take the vehicle for immediate analysis, and someone get Miss James a coat." Sienna opened her mouth to refuse, instinctively. But a chill ran through her, and she accepted the coat offered by a guard, still dripping in her blue uniform. Her elegance, even soaked, seemed indecipherable to those who only saw job titles. There was something in the way she held her chin, dignified, not arrogant. that silenced questions. When Nathan turned back to the crowd, his executive face was back in place, but something in his eyes had changed. "We'll be reviewing our processes," he said, but the voice now had a different cadence. He glanced at Caleb, who held the stare with an uncomfortable glint. At the far end of the courtyard, Sienna quietly clenched her fingers, as if holding on to an invisible thread she wasn't letting go of. She knew that scream had opened doors and problems. The light rain was still falling over the courtyard of Whitman Enterprises when the last investors were escorted inside the building, murmuring among themselves. The truck was cordoned off, the safety barrier raised, and Sienna remained there, her blue uniform still damp beneath the makeshift cover. Her honey-colored eyes, once shining with courage, now carried a shadow. The feeling that, despite saving lives, she wouldn't be treated as a hero. Nathan, tall and imposing even when wet, walked silently beside his brother. Caleb seemed to relish the moment like an actor on stage, adjusting his suit, smiling faintly, his green eyes full of mischief. When they reached the main hall, he broke the silence with a voice dripping with venom. "It's strange, don't you think? A cleaning lady knowing so much about breaks and emergency protocols. Almost like it was rehearsed." Nathan stopped, staring at the polished marble floor, jaw clenched. "She saved people, Caleb. Let's not forget that. Or staged a scene to get noticed." Caleb stepped in closer, speaking low, confidentially. "Did you see how she screamed, how she ran? Like she was waiting for the perfect moment. It's dangerous to let someone like that roam free around here. Imagine the headlines. Cleaning lady saves CEO after mysterious accident. It'll make you look negligent. Do you realize the damage?" Nathan didn't respond. His silence, heavy, felt like complicity. In the employee locker room, Sienna was changing out of her soaked shoes when Amara rushed in, her voice tense. "Girl, I overheard Caleb talking to the supervisor. He wants to blame you for the leak, saying you were in a restricted area without authorization." Sienna looked up, her curls still dripping, her lips trembling between outrage and fear. "I saved his life. And now they want to fire me." Amara gripped her friend's shoulders firmly. "You know how this world works. To them, you're invisible until the day you become inconvenient. But you can't give up. Not now." Minutes later, in the glass-walled meeting room, the cleaning supervisor called Sienna in. The woman, with an austere expression, straight glasses and a gray blazer, kept her voice low but firm. "Sienna James, we received a report stating that you were in an unauthorized area during the demonstration. Mr. Caleb Whitman claims your conduct was irregular." A report? Sienna tried to contain her outrage. "I was doing my job. I noticed the leak, recognized the smell, and acted. If it weren't for me, Mr. Nathan would have—" She stopped, her voice cracking. Caleb entered through the back door, smiling as he adjusted his tie. What a lovely story. But of course, there's no one who can confirm it. Besides you. Sienna stared at him with resolve, standing tall even under the threat. The security cameras saw what happened. They'll show that I was there, working, and that I shouted because the truck was out of control. Caleb let out a quiet, sarcastic laugh. Cameras can fail. Files can disappear. What's left is the word of a cleaning lady against that of a Whitman. The sentence sliced through the air like a knife. Sienna felt her heart race, her blood boil. Amara, standing beside her as a silent witness, murmured only, "Don't stay quiet. Don't give up what you earned. Nathan entered last. The room fell silent. He looked at Sienna for several seconds, and she thought she saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. But his expression shut down. For now, Miss James will be suspended until the investigation is complete. The words landed like a blow. Sienna's chest tightened. Her eyes welled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Dignity was her last defense. "So this is how I'm thanked," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor. "I risked my life to protect you, and now I'm treated like a suspect." No one answered. The cold silence in the room was worse than any insult. Sienna took a deep breath, straightened her back, and walked to the door without lowering her gaze. As she passed Nathan, she whispered, just loud enough for him to hear, "One day, you'll see the truth." Nathan closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if her words had hit a vulnerable spot. Caleb, on the other hand, smiled in satisfaction. As Sienna left the room, the security camera in the hallway flickered with a small electrical glitch. The barely noticeable detail hinted that Caleb's conspiracy was already in motion. Night fell heavy over Atlanta. In her small apartment with peeling walls, Sienna laid her blue uniform over the kitchen chair. The fabric still carried the smell of rain and grease, bitter reminders of a day that should have made her a hero, but it instead turned her into a suspect. The silence in the house weighed as much as the cold stare she received in the meeting. She walked to the narrow window and looked out at the wet street, lit by old lamp posts. Her reflection in the glass took her back in time. Her heart tightened as the distant sound of a truck passing on the avenue brought back a memory she had tried to bury. In that moment, everything returned. The memory of her teenage years, the phone ringing in the middle of the night, her mother's trembling voice announcing the tragedy. Her father, Marcus James, had died in a work accident inside a poorly supervised warehouse. The truck he was driving lost control after ignored mechanical failures. Sienna closed her eyes and, for the first time in years, allowed herself to hear the scene in her mind. She remembered the smell of coffee that morning when he left the house wearing his faded blue cap and a tired smile. "I promise we'll go to the park on Sunday, my little girl," he had said, hugging her tightly. That promise was never kept. The 17-year-old girl had run desperately to the hospital that night, only to find her mother crying in the waiting room. They knew the brakes were bad, Sienna, and they still made him drive. Her mother's scream echoed in her mind like burning steel. Back in the present, Sienna collapsed to her knees on the worn rug in the living room. The tears flowed without permission. "Dad, it happened again today. Another truck, another leak." I screamed. I tried to stop it, but they want to silence me just like they silenced you. She stood up with effort, her body trembling, and went to the oldest drawer in the dresser. Inside, she kept a yellowed photo of her father smiling beside an old truck. She ran her fingers over the image, as if she could touch his skin. "I won't let them take my voice. Not this time." Her phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Amara. "They're going to try to bring you down, but you're not alone. We'll meet tomorrow." Sienna took a deep breath, wiped her face, and fixed her eyes on the photo. The past wasn't just pain, it was fuel. "I'm going to fight, Dad. For you. For me. For everyone they step on." Outside, thunder rumbled over Atlanta. The crack lit up the window and reflected her hardened gaze. Pain was turning into determination. She didn't know how, but she could feel the battle was just beginning. The next morning, the sun peeked timidly through Atlanta's buildings. Sienna walked toward the Whitman Enterprises building, still officially suspended from her duties, but determined to meet Amara and plan their next steps. Her blue uniform remained folded at home, a symbol of injustice and silence. That morning, she wore a simple white shirt and dark jeans, her loose curls bouncing in the wind. Across the city, Nathan hadn't slept. His gaze, usually cold and calculated, was now heavy with doubt. The images from the night before haunted him: the out-of-control truck, Sienna's scream, the certainty in her eyes. He tried to ignore it, but that voice echoed like a call he couldn't silence. Finally, he decided to find her. Sienna was surprised when, as she turned the corner near her modest building, she saw Nathan parked in a sleek black car. The contrast between him, in his flawless light gray suit, and the humble scenery of her neighborhood was striking. He stepped out of the car, hesitant, his blue eyes watching her every reaction. "Mr. Whitman," she asked, a mix of surprise and caution in her voice. He took a deep breath before answering. "Sienna, I need to talk to you." Her heart raced. She didn't know if it was anger, fear, or the strange power that man seemed to have over her. "After suspending me like a criminal, now you show up at my door. What exactly do you want to hear?" Nathan stepped closer, his expression serious. "I want to understand, yesterday, when the truck lost its brakes, you reacted in a way none of my engineers would have thought of. How did you know what to do?" Sienna looked him straight in the eye. The wind tousled her hair, but her stance was unshakable. "I knew because I've lived through it before. Because my father died in an accident just like that. Because I grew up smelling oil, burnt metal, systems that failed because someone decided to save money." Nathan looked away, as if her words hit him directly. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," she replied, her voice thick with the pain still lingering. "To you and your brother, numbers and contracts matter more than lives. My father didn't get a second chance, but I wasn't going to let history repeat itself." The silence between them was deep, heavy, but not empty. Nathan looked at her like he was truly seeing her for the first time, not as a cleaning lady, but as a woman of courage and truth. His eyes softened, and for the first time, the coldness gave way to something human. "You're not like the others," he said, almost in a whisper. Sienna lifted her chin, not letting the moment overtake her. "I'm exactly like many you ignore every day. The only difference is, I chose not to stay quiet." Nathan took a deep breath, clearly torn between defending his world and absorbing the impact of her words. "I need your help. I need you to tell me exactly what you saw, what you know. If Caleb is behind this." She cut him off, her amber eyes burning. "Careful, Mr. Whitman. If you truly want the truth, you'll have to be ready to face not just your brother, but the entire system that protects men like him." Nathan remained silent, feeling the weight of her words. He was used to controlling boardrooms, but in front of Sienna, he felt small. She turned to go inside the building, but before closing the door, she looked him in the eye one last time. "If you come to me again, don't come as a CEO. Come as a man willing to listen. Only then will I tell you everything I know." Nathan stood on the sidewalk, watching the door close slowly. For the first time in years, he didn't know what his next move should be. Doubt consumed him. But so did a new kind of unrest. That woman, invisible to everyone else, had become impossible to ignore. The next day, the glass-walled hallways of Whitman Enterprises buzzed with whispers. The news spread like wildfire. Internal documents had been found, stating that the brake failure might have been caused by a cleaning mishap. Only one name appeared as directly responsible: Sienna James. Caleb entered the conference room with a leather folder in hand. He wore a flawless dark blue suit, a neatly adjusted tie, and his smile carried the false serenity of someone who had everything under control. He laid out the papers before the board and spoke with conviction. According to this report, residue from cleaning chemicals may have corroded the brake system pipes. And guess who was assigned to that sector? Miss James. The board members exchanged glances, some frowning, others shaking their heads silently. Nathan, seated at the head of the table, kept his eyes fixed on the documents, but his clenched jaw betrayed his tension. At that same moment, in the employee cafeteria, Sienna walked in with Amara by her side. The space, usually loud and full of conversation, fell into silence. Gazes sliced through her like blades. Some whispered, others just looked away, as if the shame of being accused were contagious. A blonde employee in a gray uniform muttered loud enough to be heard, "She wanted too much attention. Now she's paying for it." Sienna, in her fitted blue uniform and with a firm posture, walked up to the metal tray counter, but her hand trembled. Amara leaned in and whispered, "Don't listen. Don't give them that satisfaction." Shortly after ASIC, she was called into the supervisor's office. The environment was cold, lit by white overhead lights. The supervisor, wearing a stern expression and holding a stack of papers, began. "Sienna James, based on the documents presented, you are being accused of negligence. You are suspended from your duties until further notice." Sienna felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. "Negligence? I saved Mr. Nathan's life," I shouted. "I activated the emergency bay, and now I'm being blamed for something I didn't do." Caleb, who entered at that exact moment, walked in with calculated calm. "No one's blaming you, Sienna. We're simply investigating. But let's be honest, an employee in a restricted area, possibly tampering without realizing it, could have caused the damage. It's a plausible explanation." Her amber eyes burned with indignation. "I never touched that truck. I saw the leak, smelled it, and tried to stop a disaster. And this is how I'm treated, as a scapegoat." Nathan, who had remained silent until now, stood up. His voice was firm, but every word was laced with doubt. "Caleb, these documents, who created them?" "Maintenance department," his brother replied quickly. "I've got trusted contacts there. No reason for them to lie." Nathan held the papers, studying every line. Something didn't add up. The formatting looked different from the reports he was used to. He raised his blue eyes and stared at his brother. "And why are these documents only appearing now?" Caleb kept his smile, but looked away for a split second. "Because we only dug deeper now." "What? You want us to ignore something like this, Nathan? The company's image is at stake." Sienna, her voice shaky but firm, took a step forward. "Your image might be worth millions, but my dignity is priceless. I won't accept being blamed for something I didn't do." Silence filled the room. Nathan stared at her, torn between loyalty to his brother and the strength of truth shining in her eyes. Deep down, he was beginning to realize something much bigger was happening, and that Sienna might be the only truly honest one in that room. Outside, the rain had returned, tapping against the windows like a warning. Caleb closed his folder and gave a nearly imperceptible smile, convinced he'd taken another step in his scheme. But this time, Nathan didn't look away. For the first time, the shadow of doubt about his own brother had settled in his heart. Sienna left the company headquarters that rainy afternoon, feeling the weight of humiliation. The blue uniform remained packed in the bag she carried, a cruel reminder that her life had been put on hold along with her job. Even so, as she walked the narrow streets of Atlanta, there was a fire in her amber eyes. The past had already taken her father, but she would not allow it to steal her dignity too. Amara was waiting for her in a small coffee shop lit by warm yellow lights, the air filled with the smell of strong coffee and sweet bread. As soon as Sienna walked in, Amara stood up quickly. "Sienna, I've heard things. Caleb's not just accusing you. He tampered with the reports. I know someone in IT who told me." Sienna sat down, her shoulders still tense. "So I'm not crazy." "I knew something was wrong with those papers. They weren't originals." Amara lowered her voice, leaning in. "My contact said Caleb accessed the files before the meeting. He changed dates, names, everything. But if we can recover the system's old records, we can prove it was sabotage." Sienna's eyes lit up with a newfound strength. "And how do we do that? He'll leave a trail." "They always do," Amara replied, determined. The next day, in the early hours of the morning, the two women quietly entered the company building using their still active employee badges for basic access. The hallway was empty, lit only by emergency lights. Sienna's heart pounded as memories of her late-night cleaning shifts flooded back, those times when she was invisible to everyone. Now, that invisibility was her weapon. In the IT maintenance room, Amara plugged in a flash drive and began typing quickly. The monitor flickered, revealing archived records. Sienna watched the screen closely. Suddenly, lines of code and hidden reports appeared. Among them, original inspection documents confirmed the truck had received only partial maintenance, and a brake replacement request had been ignored under direct orders from Caleb Whitman. "It's here," Amara whispered, nearly trembling. He digitally signed off on the release, even knowing about the defect. Sienna covered her mouth, shock mixing with outrage. My God. He risked his own brother's life just to take him down. A noise echoed in the hallway. Footsteps. The two women exchanged looks. Amara quickly saved the files onto the flash drive and shut down the system. Sienna turned off the lights, and they hid behind a metal cabinet. A security guard passed by, flashing his light around, unaware of their presence. The silence was heavy as lead until the footsteps faded away. Taking a deep breath, Sienna whispered, "I'm done hiding. He tried to use me as a scapegoat, but now I have the proof. I'm going to fight, even if the whole world wants to silence me." Amara squeezed her hand. "You're not alone." Sienna tucked the flash drive into the inner pocket of her jacket, feeling like she was carrying a ticking bomb. As they stepped out into the street, the light rain returned, soaking her face. But for the first time in a long while, those raindrops didn't feel like sadness. They felt like rebirth. She knew the battle was just beginning, and that going up against Caleb would be dangerous. Still, there was a fire in her eyes that no one could put out. The entire city was already buzzing about the Whitman Enterprises scandal when the case finally reached court. The imposing facade of the Atlanta courthouse looked even more intimidating on that overcast morning. Journalists crowded the entrance, camera flashes lit up the steps, and headlines were already circulating on screens. Cleaning lady versus the Whitman Empire. Sienna walked to the main door with her head held high, though her heart pounded in her chest. She wore a simple navy blue dress, modest yet elegant, and her curly hair flowed freely over her shoulders like a frame of dignity. At her side, Amara supported her with a steady gaze, while the crowd whispered and pointed. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick. On the right, Caleb sat flawless in his black suit, flashing a confident smile like someone who already knew the outcome. Nathan, sitting farther back, looked distant, restless, torn between family loyalty and a truth he was starting to see. When the judge opened the session, Caleb's lawyer stood up, his voice full of disdain. "Your Honor, we're dealing with an unqualified employee suspended for negligence, now trying to play the hero. How could someone like her possibly understand technical failures in a highly complex truck?" Some in the courtroom chuckled quietly. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Even the muffled laughter hit Sienna like knives, but she took a deep breath and faced every stare. Her name was called. Sienna rose and walked to the center of the room. The sound of her modest heels echoed on the wooden floor. She placed her hand on the Bible to swear in. Her amber eyes met Caleb's, and she saw the poison in his smile, like he had already won. The lawyer bombarded her with questions. "Miss James, what exactly were you doing in a restricted area?" "I was working. My job includes cleaning the garage and the yard where the truck was parked." "And how exactly, does a cleaning lady recognize brake fluid?" Sienna took a breath, her voice unwavering. "Because the smell is unmistakable to someone who's lost someone because of it. I know because I watched my father die from negligence." A murmur spread through the room. The lawyer smirked coldly. "Your Honor, with all due respect, we're looking at a woman emotionally involved, bringing personal trauma as if it were evidence. That holds no legal value." Laughter returned, louder now. Sienna closed her eyes for a moment. She felt the weight of humiliation. But when she opened them again, there was no fear, only fire. She looked directly at the judge and raised her voice. "I didn't come here to win applause. I came because I have proof, and I'm not alone." At that moment, Amara stood up at the back of the courtroom and handed a flash drive to the defense attorney. The judge granted permission to present it. The screen lit up, and before everyone, the original maintenance reports appeared. There it was, Caleb's digital signature, approving the truck's release despite critical failures. Silence fell over the room. Caleb turned pale, his green eyes wide in shock. Nathan leaned forward, feeling the truth tear through the performance of lies. Journalists rushed to capture every detail, cameras flashing nonstop. Sienna stood tall, eyes brimming, but her voice steady. "They laughed at me because I'm invisible to them. But the truth doesn't need a title or a powerful last name. The truth only needs the courage to be spoken." The room buzzed with murmurs. The judge raised a hand for silence, but the impact had already hit. Caleb tried to compose himself, the lawyer stuttered, and Nathan, for the first time, stood up in public. "Enough. I can't stay silent anymore. She's telling the truth." The courtroom erupted in whispers. A battle that had seemed lost took a sharp turn, and Sienna's name echoed as a symbol of courage. The courtroom was still buzzing with whispers when the session ended. Reporters swarmed the exit, camera flashes slicing through the air, but Nathan saw nothing but Sienna. She walked steadily down the center aisle, her amber eyes still wet, but her dignity intact. The navy blue dress seemed to glow under the cold light, as if declaring to the world that no lie could erase her. Nathan, used to closing multi-million-dollar deals and commanding rooms full of powerful men, felt small beside that woman. For the first time in years, he realized that it wasn't his money or his status that had prevented a tragedy. It was her courage. Hours later, after the building had emptied, he found her sitting on the front steps, her body tired and her hands folded in her lap. He approached silently, taking off his light gray jacket and offering it to her. "You must be cold." Sienna looked up, surprised. There was tenderness in his blue eyes, something that hadn't been there days ago. "I'm used to the cold," she replied, not accepting it right away. He insisted, gently placing the jacket over her shoulders. "Maybe." "You shouldn't be anymore." A thick silence settled between them. The rain began to fall again, lightly, tapping on the steps. Nathan sat beside her, not caring that his suit was getting wet. "I saw you in there, facing everyone, even when they laughed." "Sienna, I can't stop thinking. My whole life has been made of cold walls. You broke through that." She turned away, her heart tight. "Nathan, don't get this wrong. I'm not here to be a sweet memory in your life. I fought because it was right, and because I've already lost too much." He looked at her, voice low but intense. "And what if I told you I don't want to lose you?" Sienna smiled, but the gesture held pain. "You already lost me when you chose to believe your brother instead of me. Maybe now. It's too late." The words hit him like blades. Nathan looked down, his face tight with regret. "I made a mistake, and I don't know if there's enough forgiveness in the world to fix it. But I want to try. Just tell me there's still a chance." The wind blew, carrying the damp scent of the city. Sienna took a deep breath, her soul torn between the hurt and the strange flame that grew every time she looked at him. She gently touched his hand, then pulled away, afraid to give in. "It's not me who has to decide now. It's you. Prove you can face the truth. Only then will you find me." Nathan stayed there, frozen, watching her stand and walk down the steps. His jacket still draped over her shoulders, fluttering in the wind. For the first time, the powerful CEO had no control over fate. He only knew one thing: he was in love, and his biggest fear now wasn't losing the company. It was losing Sienna forever. That night, Sienna returned home exhausted. The trial had left her soul raw. Despite the evidence revealed against Caleb, the weight of being tested with every word still pressed on her chest. She sat on the simple couch, hugging her knees, when she heard a knock at the door. Her heart raced. When she opened it, she found Nathan, soaked from the relentless rain. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice firm, though her eyes revealed surprise. He was breathing heavily, as if he'd run through the streets of Atlanta without thinking about anything but that moment. "I needed to see you. I needed to look into your eyes and say, I'm not the same man you met in that cold company." Sienna crossed her arms, trying to shield herself from her own emotions. "Nathan, you've got an empire collapsing, a brother in disgrace, a reputation on the line. Why are you here and not there? Taking care of what you always said was your priority." He stepped closer, rain dripping from his dark brown hair. "Because I realized none of that means anything if I lose you." The silence between them was intense, broken only by the sound of rain tapping against the windows. Sienna felt tears rising, but held them back. "You talk like it's simple. Like there's not a canyon between us. I'm the cleaning lady they all laughed at in court. And you? You're the CEO, living a life that doesn't fit into mine." Nathan took another step, closing the distance. His voice was thick with emotion. What if I told you it's your life I want to fit into? That it was you who showed me truth, courage, humanity? Her eyes trembled. The wall she had worked so hard to build was starting to crack. I still feel the pain of being betrayed by your trust in Caleb. I can't forget that. He gently touched her hand, hesitant, as if asking for permission. I don't want you to forget, Sienna. I only want the chance to make it right. She closed her eyes, letting his hand rest on hers, warmed by his touch. A wave of vulnerability washed over her, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't fight the impulse. When she opened her eyes, she found the same surrender in his. In an inevitable move, they leaned in, and the kiss happened. It wasn't a fairy tale gesture, but one born of pain and redemption. The rain intensified outside, while inside the small apartment, two opposite worlds finally came together. After the kiss, Sienna rested her forehead against his, breathing unevenly. If you lose me again, Nathan, there won't be another chance. He closed his eyes, holding her like he was holding his own breath. I won't lose you. The chaos outside continued. Headlines, scandals, Caleb still trying to defend himself. But in that moment, between simple walls and bare hearts, Sienna and Nathan chose to love each other, even if the whole world said otherwise. The storm seemed to have finally passed when the verdict came. Caleb, pale and without his usual arrogant smile, was officially removed from the company, accused of sabotage and document fraud. The image of the heir who always thought himself untouchable crumbled before the press. The Whitman name no longer represented just power and wealth, but also the fall of a man consumed by ambition. Nathan, on the other hand, chose a different path. Days later, he stepped onto the main stage of the company auditorium in front of employees, investors, and journalists. The air was solemn but full of anticipation. He wore a simple suit, nothing flashy, and looked at every worker with the steadiness of someone who had learned. Sienna stood quietly in the back of the room, watching. The blue uniform was no longer just cleaning attire. It had become a silent symbol of strength. Nathan took a deep breath and spoke. For years, I believed that power meant numbers, contracts, and boardroom victories. But I've learned that power without humanity is just weakness in disguise. So, starting today, Whitman Enterprises will be restructured. No more ignored risks, no more silenced voices. Every worker will have their dignity respected. A wave of approval moved through the room. He continued, and this time, his voice trembled with emotion. And I learned this from a woman the world tried to make invisible. A woman who, when everyone laughed at her, had the courage to speak the truth. Sienna felt her heart race. Some employees turned to her, recognizing the woman who had saved so many lives. Amara smiled proudly, tears in her eyes. After the press conference, Nathan found Sienna in the company garden, where freshly watered flowers sparkled under the afternoon sun. He approached slowly, like someone who respects the space of a person who's been hurt too much. You're not just the reason I'm still here, Sienna. You're the reason I want to be a better man. She looked into his eyes, her curly hair swaying gently in the breeze. Nathan, I didn't fight to change you. I fought because it was the right thing to do. Whatever you chose to do after, that was on you. He smiled, moved, but it was love that showed me it was possible. And I don't want to live without it. Sienna held his hand, firm. Then never forget this. True power isn't in money. It's in seeing the human worth of each person. It's in never silencing the truth. The sun lit them both as they embraced, not as boss and employee, not as two opposing worlds, but as two souls that found each other in the chaos. The scandal had turned into redemption, and the love born from pain and courage now stood as proof that even the deepest wounds can bloom into something new. Deep down, they both knew life wouldn't be easy, that they would still face judgmental stares, differences, and obstacles. But together, they had learned that dignity, justice, and true love were stronger than any fortune. And so we reach the end of this story, full of pain, courage, twists, and true love. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? Leave your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments to show how much this story touched your heart. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share it with someone special, and subscribe to the channel to follow more stories like this one. And before you go, I've picked another emotional story that I'm sure will touch your soul even deeper. Don't miss it.